Yesterday, I was helping someone file for their disability, and it got me thinking because it's been a couple years since I've done mine, and it got me thinking of the headspace I was in when I filed for mine. Um, so I'm Karen. If you don't know who I am, I was in the Navy for 14 and a half years, active duty. Then I decided to leave active duty for various reasons that I'll probably try to go into in a separate video. And I currently live in Norway with my husband because he's still active duty. And we moved out here after I get out. And I still am in the reserves, but I filed for my disability. And I remember going through TAPS class almost a year prior when I was selected for orders and being bombarded with information. And, but I remember like going through like all the separate courses, like because we were leading up to a deployment. And so I went through like all the individual courses through Fleet and Family. I was in the Navy, and I just remember going through all the different courses to try to soak in as much as information as possible. And then when our deployment got delayed, I went and did TAPS as like a walk-in. Uh, 1 week was just so much information to take in during that time frame, and it was hard to kind of like wrap your head around all of it. It gave me almost a year to prepare because I was making the decision 6 months prior to my contract being up, but then COVID happened and I extended for 6 months. And anyway, so that's a story for another day. I ended up having a year to kind of process and go through all these things. And we had a lot of other things going on at the same time. I had a lot of personal things going on at the same time, but I thought I was prepared and I thought I was ready and I thought I was like all the things, right? I had done the research. I knew I had written a list of things, all, recommendations and stuff like that. And I still found myself, I separated January 16th, and I found myself in April still having not filed. Even though I thought I was prepared, thought I knew all the things. My terminal leave started in December. I just didn't realize I needed someone to hold my hand. And so that's what I did last night for this person who I don't know in person. So I can't say like they're a friend. I think from our conversations, we're now close to friendly, to say the least. But I shared very publicly on my Facebook about my transition, my process, I ended up getting 100% permanent and total. And because of that, a lot of friends who were either transitioning or knew someone transitioning have sent people my way to help walk them through the process. I am by far not an expert, but when I found myself in that process, I realized I needed someone to hold my hand. And so what did that mean? Again, by referral, had someone message me and said, hey, this guy that I know has this company, and it was on the lower scale of what most companies charge for helping someone. They didn't file my stuff for me. Not that type of company. Those usually can go upwards of a couple $1,000s. This one had courses. It was very well laid out. I don't regret having paid for it because I think mentally, the place that I was at, I needed that. But I did feel like I didn't need to have paid that much for what I got, if that makes any sense. Highly recommend them, however, if you're in that mental space and you need it. They offered coaching. They had very well laid out courses, recommendations, and they had even referrals for like lawyers and stuff like that if you needed to appeal and stuff like that. So amazing resource, highly recommend. I will try to put it in the comments. 'Cause I need to look through like all my stuff. It's been 3 years, but I will try to link it in the comments below. Highly recommend in that sense. But what it made me think about was the fact that filing is easy, but mentally getting over the hurdle of feeling like you deserve disability, I think is hard. And that's kind of what I want to talk about because I had to remind the person I was talking to last night that you the military gives you retirement like at 20 years because it condenses your lifespan essentially. It takes the best your youth and runs it through like a time machine, the easiest way to explain it. So you accelerate your body's like deterioration rate exponentially. And they've done studies on this. They've done all these things. And so after 20 years, the issues that most veterans, that most service members start experiencing are things that people that haven't done any service start experiencing in their 50s, 60s. I know this from personal experience because some of the stuff that I have had to get medication or have had to um, manage holistically or have had issues trying to navigate are things that my mother, who is, she had me when she was 26, she's 26 years older than me, um, is now experiencing. So for me to experience the same stuff as someone that's 20, almost 30 years older than me should be a reason for you to think, maybe I do deserve this. Maybe this is something that is going to help me. And I talked with a friend a while, like a couple weeks ago, and that's something that you're talking about. She got out after 4 or 5 years of service, never filed for disability. See if I do the math, I've been in for almost 18 now at this point, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah. So I've been in for almost 18. That means that she's been out of the service for almost 10 years. Um, and so for 10 years, she's been roughing it like most vets that get out and they're just like, oh, whatever, I only did so much, I didn't have my leg blown off, or I don't have like panic attacks on a regular basis. But I think it's because we are terrified of getting a label. I personally hate labels, like detest them because nobody's business. And I think that was part of it, is thinking that you're going to be labeled as less than, or thinking that you're going to be labeled as inferior simply because you have a rating from the VA that says that you are disabled and now you get a paycheck for that. And your your number, your rating does define you. It doesn't need to define you unless you allow it to define you. But what it does allow, this is, I wholeheartedly want others to understand this, it allows you to not be struggle busing it, not be fighting, not be pushing, not be doing all of these things and have a guaranteed paycheck. It might not be enough for you to cover all of your bills. You might still have to have a job. Most people do have other jobs aside from that. But what it does do is I don't want you to look at it as like you deserve this per se. I want you to look at it as like this is something that's supposed to be a compensation for what you experienced, whether you experienced war, combat, you experienced bullying, you experienced sexual assault, whatever it was, even just the day to day of constantly being on the clock. Because for me, when you're a sailor, but if you're a service member of any branch, you're on the clock 24/7. You don't clock off. That does something to your cortisol levels. That does something to your body. And your body quickly deteriorates from that. I know I'm not the only one when I say this, that I have woken up in the middle of the night before, especially like my first couple of months getting out, where I was like, oh my God, I'm late for watch. That's anxiety. That's another name for that. And so I think I'm recently reading a book by Brene Brown, and it's called Atlas of the Heart, and she was talking about language opens our world. And when we don't know the right word, she was referring it to emotions, but when we don't know the right word for something, when we don't know how to define something, it limits us because we don't know how to verbalize what we're experiencing. So when I've told service members, hey, you've ever experienced like this panic that you thought you were late for work and all of a sudden it's a Saturday, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's called anxiety. And they're just like, But if you ask someone, oh, do you have anxiety? They're like, no, I'm fine. That it's not a linear thing where you have it 24/7. It can ebbs and flows. And so I just wanted to share that because I think it's important to know that the time frame between you separating from service and filing for disability shouldn't matter when it comes to filing. Um, the closer you are to separating, or the closer you file to your separation date, that's a better way of wording it, the better, because there's less tracking and all that other stuff. But I since I shared so publicly about my transition on Facebook, and I'll see if there's a way for me to pull some of those videos and post them on YouTube. But um, because I shared so publicly from that, one of my friends' dad, it still chokes me up because he was so kind to me during my transition because I had so much imposter syndrome, especially when I got my rating, feeling like I didn't deserve that, or I wasn't worthy of that, or that I had all of this baggage from the military that I was still trying to work through while going through life. And he was so kind, when he shared how what I was experiencing in that moment was still valid, regardless if I got shot at or not, regardless if I had lost a limb or not, regardless if my wounds were visible or not. And I felt like that was so powerful because he was a Vietnam vet, Vietnam guys, and he never filed for disability. And after I had shared a little bit about my story, he decided to finally do the process. It took him almost a year. Do the math, guys. It took him almost a year. Imagine trying to locate records, or if there was records. Like, he shared with me how he went through having food thrown at him. He was called a baby killer. He couldn't find a job. He um, suffered what we now know is called PTSD in silence with his wife. Like, he adores his wife because she endured through that without knowing what it was. And a year of starting his process, he not only got his disability 100%, but he also got back paid. And it was so important to him. Sorry if I lowered my voice. I think my baby woke up. um, because his wife was the primary breadwinner for the time frame where he couldn't work. He couldn't support his family after going to war for his family and his country. He was received with closed arms, closed doors everywhere. And so him getting that disability and that back pay, I remember him telling me the joy of being like, I can finally retire my wife. That's heartbreaking, guys. I really need to share. um, do the mind work. If you need help, please reach out. Again, I am not an expert, nor do I charge to just sit down and walk you through the process. I thought about explaining it on here and seeing if I can do like a screen share and stuff. But there's tons of videos out there, I think. But if you do need that, I think I did record something where I explained it, and I can send that to you as well too. Or I can make a video real quick. But yeah, you are worthy. You deserve to be seen. Disability does not make you a fraud, does not make you less than. And I just feel like somebody needed to hear that. So I'll be sharing more videos on here. I think I'm supposed to say click the subscribe button or something like that. This is my first video like about this. So